Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Pleasure to be gathered in again. Wasn't sure how this evening was going to go up until the very last minute. Couldn't get these pages printed. So I might have just had to go wing it off my head. That's what I was concerned about for a while. And you might have been out of here in about 10 minutes and had a long evening to practice singing. But thankfully we got them printed. And if you ever have a printer that doesn't work, I never got mine actually hooked up to the computer. It still didn't print, but the first thing I had to fight, if you ever got a printer that doesn't work, look for the button on the bottom corner of it. It might turn right on. Okay. Anyway, I think a school book might have bumped it and shut it off one day, and I came home and started trying to fix it, and all the start buttons up there are for other things. So I felt a little silly when I figured that out, but anyway, then it still wouldn't hook up the computer, so Micah thankfully saved me and did it here. Tonight, I want to talk about a topic that a lot of people may not feel is necessary. And, you know, if you're one of those people that just wants to get by on minimum effort, you're probably not going to, there's a good chance you're going to miss heaven. So it's really kind of is a salvation issue, but you're probably not going to be interested in what we got to talk about tonight. But if you're one of those people that really tries hard, and it mean the world to you for certain people to say, you know, I really appreciate what I see, and if you heard somebody say about you that person has wisdom beyond their years. You know, anybody would like to have that said about him, even the fool would, because it just feels good. But if you're the type of young person that seeks for excellence and seeks for perfection, and that would really be let me put it this way, that praise would really go to your feet instead of going to your head. I've given a lot of praise to people in the world here and there. Try to look for opportunities to do that as much as I can because it's a good way to do it. Criticizing doesn't help people a lot. Looking for opportunities to praise does. One problem I found is when you give that kind of praise, when the praise goes straight to their head, they start lacking performance after that, and they feel like they've had some sense of arrival, and what you really intended it to be was for a little bit of encouragement for their feet. So if somebody would say that, and you're the type of person that would take that and put it to your feet, I want to talk about that tonight, and I want to talk about some of the characteristics of how to get that and be that way, and not just so somebody will say it about you, but you'll find it really has a lot to do with preparation for eternity. And whether anybody thinks these things are necessary or not, we'll find out at Judgment Day what's necessary and what's not necessary. But at this stage of the game, it's not a time to take chances. So tonight we're going to be talking about wisdom beyond your years. Wisdom isn't measured by age. Age can help with wisdom, but wisdom isn't measured by age. Wisdom is measured by how much foresight you have when applying knowledge while you're thinking and acting today in light of the steps ahead. And when you take the knowledge that you have, now, more age, you get more information, more knowledge will come with age. But wisdom has to do with how you apply the knowledge, who you consider, what you consider, what comes into this decision-making process. And so wisdom should come with age. Wisdom should come with knowledge. It should come. But the proper application of knowledge is where wisdom comes in. And you don't get it automatically with age. You will automatically get more knowledge. Whether good or bad, you'll get more knowledge. Now, wisdom has to do with having the right knowledge and applying it correctly. And we want to talk about some of these principles because I really feel like in our congregation here, I feel like we have a lot of young people and older people. I think that as a whole, we really want to do what's right. I think that if the rapture comes, as most of us really, maybe all of us, really are determined to not be left. Okay, and that maybe if we have some sobriety, we can understand what a miracle it would be if that actually took place. It's not a likelihood, okay? For someone who knows the scripture and knows what goes into being prepared, it's not a likelihood, so I don't really take chances with it. But I think a lot of us, I think we have that desire, and I think that desire of perfection is there. And so this isn't a get your heart right with God kind of a message, and I don't even really plan on getting worked up about it. But I want to talk about this situation because this will set you apart from everybody else in the world who's seeking their own things. And it also is very essential. It'll make you an incredible blessing in your community, in society, and it will be the key that starts you on the path to becoming a man after God's own heart, becoming the friend of God. And so we want to talk about all these things. When I looked up the key characteristics of wisdom beyond one's years, it brought up some bullet points that I want to go over. The first one is mature decision making. The ability to consider long-term consequences before acting, rather than making impulsive choices. And the amount of wisdom beyond your years, you might be 6 months beyond your time, or how long-term can we have foresight and hide ourselves from evil, like it says, the prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. How long-term can we look in the future when we're making decisions today? And this is directly tied to the amount of wisdom you have, and if you have any wisdom beyond your years. If you have just wisdom that's all to do say you're a young person and you're doing and acting just like an average young person that has the young person average appetites, or you're doing this adult thing and you're running your business and you're running your home and you're just acting the same way other people do in that age bracket, and when you get old you're going to look back and there's going to be a lot of regrets, a lot of stupidity. There's probably going to be a lot of that anyway. But if we're setting out on this course, we can eliminate a lot of that, and we can become a blessing and not look back with grief or embarrassment, because from early on, from little child up, we set out to have this wisdom that takes in the future, the long-term consequences of my decisions, and doesn't act on how it makes me feel today. I think a good illustration of that is when Daddy mentioned, when he was looking for a wife, he detached himself as much as he could in his situation by giving him principles for the future about what if it was my son? And that's what we're talking about, is how to look into the future and go, what would I think if that was my son? Or who would, and be able to detach yourself from the moment of feeling and personal, whatever it may be, emotions and whatnot, and make a principled decision based on the big picture. And as Christians, when we do that, what I want us to do is I want us to think long-term consequences right into eternity. And every time we make a decision, I want us to try to make that happen. The next bullet point, deep empathy and understanding. An ability to see from different perspectives and not judge people based on superficial traits like background or appearance, or basically just what my initial impulse would be because of what you look like or whatever. But you've got the maturity to know, no, I've seen people come from bad situations. You don't really know where they're coming from. I'm not going to judge you just because you look like a freak right now. I'm going to come to you and I'm going to try to witness to you. I'm not going to prejudge your response. I'm going to give you a legit chance. You're going to act maturely towards that person and not be the young person over there scoffing about how stupid he looks and that type of stuff. If you're that type of person that just acts impulsively based on the way you feel, based on what friends are around you. If you're the type of person that changes behavior between what friend group you're with, then you have no wisdom beyond your years. You don't even have wisdom beyond the moment that you're living in. Because your moment changes and your decisions change, your actions change. You're not really principled. You're literally living on the impulse of the moment, the emotion of the moment, who's watching at the moment, not taking in the long-term aspects of it. And that habit will make you act in ways that will not be preparing you for eternity. That's the long term that we're talking about. But it'll also make you act in ways that you're going to say things, you're going to get yourself in trouble, and there's going to be problems. There's going to be things that you may not get immediate trouble for because you may be trying to cover it up, but you're going to set an example and a testimony. And if you ever do want to be a good example, you ever do want to encourage somebody to do well, it's going to be there to haunt you, and the devil's going to use it. So I don't want us to fall into that trap. Some of these may overlap, but another one that was brought up as a definition is emotional regulation. Handling difficult situations or immaturity from others with patience and calm rather than just reacting. So being able to take a difficult situation, immaturity from somebody else, and you got two 15-year-olds, and you got immaturity, and usually immaturity begets immaturity when you have two people in the same age bracket. But because they're acting like teenagers. You ever heard of acting like teenagers? You don't want it. If you're a Christian person, you should chafe at that. That should sound so belittling to you. It shouldn't be okay. You shouldn't ever act like it's okay or feel like it's okay. You should feel shamed and embarrassed by somebody saying that in a time when you've done something immature. Because our goal is not to be, I'm a kid, I'm going to enjoy being a kid, I'm a teenager, it comes with the territory, I'll grow up and... No. If you want to have the wisdom of God and a good testimony for Christ, you're going to need to seek to control your emotions, have mature decision making, be able to look at people from a different perspective, and be able to take immaturity, handling difficult or situations or immaturity from others. Be patient and calm. Don't just react. And when older people see you acting in a way that you would expect older people to act, you've been around who aren't directly caught up in the emotion of it, who aren't, they're more detached and they're looking at it with more of an eye of wisdom to help calm this thing down. And they see that 15-year-old and that 15-year-old, and somebody does something foolish, somebody says something provoking, somebody says something belittling, and they see that person respond with wisdom that you would normally see from a 40-year-old. That makes everybody look and go, you know what? I know what the carnal response is for a 15-year-old, average 15-year-old in that situation. And I think they're connected to principles beyond them. They're not running on their emotions. And when you begin to see character traits like that in a young person, you go, that person has wisdom beyond their years. Because that's pretty much a compass that people... Now, there's a lot of people out there that have wisdom below their years, okay? You never grew up. You're a 40-year-old acting like a teenager. So don't be a young person. We're looking for perfection, and you don't want to be a young person or any person that looks at somebody who's more immature than you in your age bracket and go, I'm a lot better than them. You probably are. And I think a lot of us here, I think that in some ways or other ways, there's probably elements in which you have maturity beyond your years in some ways. But as a young person that wants to have the best testimony, have a walk with God, be a light and a testimony, we need to, is it okay to say covet earnestly? All of those realms, we need to listen to these principles and try to implement all of those realms in my life. I might not be a lazy person, but I may struggle here. I may have my temper under control, but I may not be a grateful person. There's a lot of areas where this wisdom is going to affect every decision. And as you begin to apply the same principles in every area, there may be things that you're naturally stronger at and other things that you're naturally weaker at. So it may come easier to you in some ways. And that might be why you're excelling in one way and not another. It may not be that you're a person bound by principle yet. But as you begin to bind yourself to principles and regulations and control your emotions, emotional regulation is a huge one. To be able to take a difficult situation or immaturity, stuff thrown at you, accusation, and be able to respond with wisdom and take your time and respond with wisdom and love and not emotion is a huge way in which people will catch on quickly that you are a person of principle, because that is one right there that you might be strong at a work ethic, or you might be a calm, easygoing, lazy person, but you're calm and easygoing, or something like that. You may have natural things, but almost nobody wants to take a a very difficult situation thrown at them, and you need to act now and level-headed, and also somebody throwing accusations or immaturity at you, that as humans, that usually starts to pull the stuff out of us, one way or the other. And you're going to need to be bound to principle. So when people see that, when they see that other young person or somebody doing something that they know that would provoke you, and they see you respond with dignity and wisdom, that's a great opportunity to take advantage of, to be a testimony and an example. Also, it can make a powerful impact and influence on the person who is doing that to you. That's the best thing you can do, is to show them an example of not reacting. They usually want it, get you to do something too to make them feel good, because otherwise they're going to go away feeling like a dog, okay? So when you act that way, you're probably going to get taunted for being so spiritual too, because they want to see you fall. Just understand that's the way it works. But if we can push this type of influence through the room in everybody, every age bracket, from the children up, and it's not our goal to just be a whatever where we are, but to operate by these principles, it's going to eliminate a lot of what goes on, what Daddy mentions, the Sunday afternoon, discouragement factor. It's going to eliminate a lot of that stuff, because somebody's going to throw an accusation. I'm not going to get all flustered and angry and upset. I'm going to deal with it with wisdom. I might be like, I'll just have to prove that wrong the long way. I'm willing to do that. I'll show that that's not the way I operate. I'll let other people go to bat for me as someday, and you may find out it takes 20 years, but or maybe God will have to do it someday. But to have that wisdom that I don't need to go make an issue of this. This is little. Somebody was just being immature. Or at least, I'll take that and go take it to the right person. This is a big deal in church relationships, and being a testimony in any way, but in church relationships and in home relationships and in with God relationships. So another one, humility and self-awareness is another one where this is going to show up. Recognizing personal limitations, being open to learning, and admitting when one is wrong. Those are all big things that you have to be, generally when people see that kind of wisdom and maturity coming out of you, especially in the young person stage, before you've been a lot of miles and had the world beat you up, you're reining yourself in with wisdom and not going to get all beat up and taught the hard way. You're going to do it early. You're going to learn from other people's mistakes, and you're going to walk circumspectly, not as fools but as wise, redeeming the time, for the days are evil, in an age bracket where most people don't even think about that. They just blow time, they waste money, they do what they want to do, they do something because it's funny and they don't care if it's stupid. And you're in that age bracket, but yet you're calculating every step for when I'm a father, when I'm the preacher, when I meet God, I'm going to be happy I stepped right there and right there when everybody else just blunders along through life. And it's because you set out to control, to learn, and humility and self-awareness, recognizing your personal limitations. And that also brings in recognizing your need for everybody. Appreciation for everybody. I think we're one of the best teams. You're about the best team that we could be on about the whole world because of the truth that we have. And we've got so much good here. The last thing we need to do is tear one another up. We need apart. We need to root for one another and realize that we need one another, and overlook some of the things that irk us, and overlook some of the things that we don't prefer, and understand I don't have to prefer that, and realize it takes this wisdom beyond our years to look at the spiritual battle that we're fighting and go, I don't care how that makes me feel right now. I don't care. That's silliness. Actually, I need to help. I need to reach out and love that person, make a relationship with that person. I don't need to say you're stupid. I need to actually reach out, because we need that person on the team too, and we need that person on the team. And I can see the devil trying to drive a wedge between us. That could have easily just drove a wedge. And so I'm going to reach out to that person, because you got wisdom way beyond your years, and you see a spiritual battle that almost nobody's paying attention to. And you can see the devil's trying to destroy a congregation that has a very accurate doctrinal position according to Scripture, the likes of which we can't find anywhere else. Okay? It's a very serious thing that we are all very serious about what we're doing. We're under a spotlight maybe for protection, but also for get this thing tore apart. And so we're going to have above average wisdom to do this. And the tactics that the devil's going to use to do it are going to be incredible. And I can cringe and I can pray and I can see things happen, but I can't necessarily say every fear I have. I can just give principles of things that we can use to guide us into making sure that each step, I'm going to take a step, I'm going to say a word, I'm going to do an action, and when I meet God, when I take this step, I'm going to be thinking about, do I want to have wished I had done this when I'm a father, when I'm the preacher, when I meet God? I'm going that way. When you do that, every time you take a step and you're thinking about your testimony and all this, every time you take a step, you're still going to have some ignorance. You're still going to look back and go, oh, I probably could have done a little bit better. But you're not going to look back with guilt because you're going to know I did the best I could. And it's going to set you on such a good course. No, I wasn't the person who fired back. I used, when I was younger, I had a fairly quick temper. There's things I did that I regret doing. There was times when I swallowed camels to strain at a gnat, okay? We've all done it. But we don't have to do it. And it can be repented of. And I've repented of it. And so my hot temper boils in my little chest, and I try really hard to not let people see it. But you might see it come out of the pulpit in a righteous way against the devil. But other than that, you can use your temper to control yourself is the best thing you can do with it. Get angry at yourself. But anyway, if we can all work on this wisdom beyond our years is going to be essential to overcoming this battle spiritually. It's going to be absolutely necessary if when a rapture takes place, we're not sitting here left going, yeah, it was that step I took and that step I took. And yeah, I knew I should have gone this way and I went that way. I didn't think it was a big deal. Well, God knows when you're taking those steps, what you're thinking about and what you're blundering in. And I can't encourage you enough. I feel like this is the recipe for setting every single one of us on the course for success and entering into heaven. I feel like this, of all the teaching you can give people, if you, every time you do something, you just wake up and you, Lord, help me to keep focused. Every time you do something, you think about when I'm a father, when I'm a mother, when I'm a pastor, when I'm a pastor's wife, when I'm meet God, whatever's ahead of you, when I'm the business owner, is this what I would want me to have done? And you take that step. With those things in mind, you are thinking of things way beyond your years and making steps calculated. And that is the recipe and the definition of wisdom beyond our years. It's not really an extra thing. We're talking about a principle that sounds like an extra thing, like something but it's not really an extra thing. It's kind of a necessary thing for Christians. We're not supposed to be that average goose. Another one is insight from experience, learning from both one's own past and the experiences of others, such as through reading, deep reflection, just the ability to learn the proper lesson from your mistakes. Understand what really went wrong. Quit justifying yourself. Understand where it really went wrong. Get honest. And the amazing ability that I just think is great is to learn from other people's mistakes. Don't think you're the exception to every rule. Or at least the ones you want to do. That's not wisdom. That is so ordinary for people to think they're the exception to the rule. You're just an average, can I say dummy? You're gonna mess up so bad in life. Learn from other people's mistakes. Look at the biblical warnings and don't go, yeah, but I'm smarter than that. You may not make the same dumb move that person made and you may miss that one. But foolishness is foolishness, and it's got a path, and you're gonna take it. Don't be that person. That is so not what we're talking about tonight. The ability to learn from your own mistakes by properly identifying what the problem was, instead of being like, oh, I know what the problem was. It was that last that last step I took. It's like, could have been leading. There could be what character flaws led me to take that step. Get back to the root of it. And if you have true wisdom that doesn't want to make those mistakes, you're going to look back and scrutinize the problem with maturity, without your emotions attached, with not trying to excuse anything, and you're going to deal with it in a thorough way where it's not going to happen again. And it's going to be a lot better than what most people do when they make mistakes and they just want to move on and make it as small of a deal as possible. You're not going to be willing to make it a small deal to yourself. You're not going to let it beat you to death and keep you down. That ain't wisdom. But you're going to properly identify what happened, and you're going to take steps to fix it. And these are key elements where this wisdom and maturity, if you can incorporate these principles in your life at a young age, in your youth, you're going to be setting yourself up for so much blessing. You're not going to be having so much chastening of the Lord and all this stuff that's just unnecessary. You can move into a relationship with God where God actually is happy to call you a child. He's not embarrassed. So another thing is, another bullet point is to focus on what truly matters. Valuing relationships and personal principles over materialism, trends, or immediate gratification. To value one another's relationships in a mature way, not in a selfish way. If it's in a selfish way, then somebody does something that hurts your self-esteem, you're going to respond that way. And when you respond that way, you prove something. You prove that your relationships are based on selfishness. But when those things can happen and you say, no, I love you. I value our relationship. Even when you just stuck a sword in my side of my feelings, and you trying hard to keep this whole thing together because you see a devil and you see someday you're going to be the one in charge. Someday you're going to be the father. So you're going to be the young person that brings peace in the situation. You're going to be a blessing to your father like you would want to have if you were there. And you're going to help keep this thing together because you've got the spiritual insight. And you're going to focus on valuing the relationships of your team. And you're going to have personal principles that are going to guide you based on the wisdom that you gain. They're going to be guiding you over all the other things that are going on. Whatever trend, whatever group of friends you're with, whatever immediate gratification. It could be money, it could be food, it could be just personal advancement in about any way. And you're not gonna let those things dictate your next step. You're gonna think about your example. You're gonna think about how that's gonna affect your example and who's watching and how that's gonna affect them and their family and their life. Is it safe? And you're gonna move through life with sobriety. That's what the Bible means when it says redeeming the time. You're not just gonna let it slip away from you and use it for foolishness. Yeah, that one kind of, I feel like, was covered on handling difficult situations. The acceptance of uncertainty and understanding that not everything is within one's control and adapting to life's unpredictability. Understanding that, you got to understand we're also in a spiritual battle. Devil, it's not just concrete. It's not just your tire. You're not just in this and all of a sudden, you're also in a spiritual battle. And the devil wants to use these things. God uses these things. These are testing spiritual qualities in your life. So to be able to take life's unpredictability, knowing that I'm in a warfare, I'm here to test out. Things are going to be thrown at me. Life's going to be unpredictable. And to be able to already setting habits of walking through life in a certain way. When these things hit you, you're going to do a lot better job at doing it right. So that was just a definition that I printed off that I thought was worth going through. And now we're going to start the sermon. Anyway, it's not going to be that long, I don't think. But I wanted to go through that definition because I thought that was really good. So I want to talk about this kind of foresight in the application of the golden rule. What is the golden rule? Anybody?
Do it unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Anybody know what verse that's based off of?
Matthew 7:12.
Good. Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. So obviously we got a parameter, the law and the prophets, to guide us in doing what we would have other people do to us. Okay? And I thought that I would read something here. I want to read something about Saul. Saul used to be a good guy. And he was a really good guy, actually. And I want to read one of the stories of when Saul was a boy. And I want to make some application from it. In 1 Samuel 9:1, now there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah, a Benjamite, a mighty man of power. I probably could have left that first verse off and saved myself some energy there. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and a goodly, and there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. That's great. For a king, great. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. And the asses of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to Saul his son, "Take now one of the servants with thee, and arise, go seek the asses." And he passed through Mount Ephraim, and passed through the land of Shalisha, but they found them not. Then they passed through the land of Shalem, and there they were not. And he passed through the land of the Benjamites, but they found them not. And when they were come to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant that was with him, "Come and let us return, lest my father leave caring for the asses and take thought for us." And that showed some wisdom and insight in Saul. And I want to draw from that, because then he turns around and they're going to go talk to the man of God. They want to go meet the man of God. And Saul goes, "Well, if we go, what should we bring the man? We don't have any bread in our vessels, and we want to bring the man of God a present." He didn't want to just go get something. He was a very thoughtful man, to the point that God picked him out of all Israel to be the king. And what happened to Saul afterwards was a terrible story. But it's also worthy to note that Jonathan was raised during this time with this daddy right here. Jonathan, when Saul had reigned 2 years, Jonathan was taking a garrison of the Philistines. Okay, so this is Saul right before Jonathan tells him about getting anointed. You know, there may have been a little time in between this and when he came to actually anoint him and everything, maybe a couple of years there. But Jonathan's, all his, I think it'd be safe to say that all his young years, all his really molding years and everything, was raised by this daddy right here. But anyway, him as a man out there looking for his father's asses, the donkeys that got lost. And he's not just out there running around looking. In the back of his mind, he's in tune with his father's heart, his father's mind, and his father's feelings. And so as he seeks these creatures, he's crossing country, and he gets to a point where he goes, "You know, if I was my daddy right now, I'd be wondering where I was, and I'd probably be stopped worrying about the donkeys and wanting me to get home. I think we ought to go home." He was putting himself in his father's position, and he gave a lot of effort to finding him for his father because he loved his father. But then he put himself in his father's position and decided, I think my father's priorities have changed about now, and I need to get home. And there's something in that. It's following the golden rule with wisdom beyond your years. It's a beautiful combination. Most people go, "Do unto others as I would have them do unto me," right now. They don't have the maturity to know even what's good for them or what they would want. But when you begin to walk in wisdom that takes in the future, it takes in the consequences, it thinks of other people, then you can say, "I want to do unto others, my father, as I would have my son do to me if I were my father." Now, there's something very mature and beautiful about that, and that will create young people and old people and any people. That'll create relationships and camaraderie and a testimony. When you walk through life applying wisdom beyond your years in light of the golden rule, boy, we're going to talk about where that goes. And that is huge. If you could be a young person and you could be in a crowd of people and you could hear them talking bad about the authority, or you could hear them kind of disrespecting, or not outright but kind of smirking, or anything, and you could do unto your father, your pastor, as you would have them do unto you if the roles were reversed and you were that person. Years down the road, you're taking in years down the road, you're going to set an example for your son, or what you would want to have done for you if you were 30 years older. You make patterns of life that way. You set your course in life that way. Apply the golden rule with the principles of wisdom beyond your years, and you will be a very usable vessel for the kingdom of God. You will not be the one disintegrating the church. You will not be the one that has your feelings propped all over your shoulders, just waiting for somebody that's honorary to come and poke them, and they get just the reaction they always wanted every time. You're not going to be that person. You're going to be the person who walks with maturity. You're going to be looking at this person that did something immature, and you're going to go, how would I want me to respond to that person if I was that person's parent? Because someday, I'll probably be the parent, and, my young person might do that. And how would I want that response to go? Well, there may need to be some correction. Now, how about how would I want my child to respond to a naughty child that treated him like this? What would honor me as a parent? Right now, I've been thoroughly provoked. And what would honor me for my child to do when they are thoroughly provoked? Because what you do directly affects everybody around you. You either honor or dishonor your parents or your church authority or God. Every time you're acting, most of the time it has a direct effect. Well, you have a direct command to honor your authorities, whether it be church authorities or family authorities. You have a direct command to honor them. And so it'd be very fitting to take this golden rule along with this wisdom and apply it to this. And when you're provoked, go, how would I feel so pleased with my child? I would feel so honored if I saw my child do this to that and be able to win a relationship through that. I would just be like, I am so happy. And can you do that and apply the golden, put yourself years into the future and apply the golden rule for your parents and for your church leadership?
Good.
I mean, I'm telling you, this is principles that's going to take average young people and make them so not even close to average. It's going to have to become your way of life if you ever want to dream of being a man or a woman after God's own heart. If you ever want to dream of being a friend of God, you're going to have to look out into the long future and say, if I was God, which I'll never be, but if I was God, how would I want me to respond in this hard situation? That's thinking way into, that's why I said, how long do you have wisdom behind your ears? That's something else to talk about. How much wisdom do you have beyond your years? I need to try to stick with saying it one way or I'm going to mess up. But when you will never become a friend of God. You can dream about it. You can think, oh, me and God are fuzzy and we don't have any problems with each other or anything. But if God doesn't see you down there going one step, two steps, something just got thrown at me, how would God want me to respond in this situation? Or I just fell. I just made a mistake. I just hurt my testimony. You may find yourself there. You're probably going to. How would I feel if I was God right now? And what would I want me to do that would honor me and make me feel like I was totally repentant, made total restitution, and actually probably have it almost as good or better of a testimony now than I did before because of the respect I was able to gain by acting in humility, taking the right protocol, inflicting it on myself, not waiting till I was told I had to, that kind of stuff. You can act in ways to redeem situations if you want to, and it can make a powerful impact. And if everybody in the church is doing that, if we all think we're going to heaven, right? Well, we need to be doing this. And if we're doing this, it's going to be such a fun time to get together. We're going to be building one another up. We're going to be able to exhort one another. And it's going to be not the feelings of that person. I can't understand being by that person. I don't really want to sit by that person. I don't even know how to look at that person. Those things start happening and the devil's just throwing his wedges in there because he's got so much immaturity to work with. It's just there. You can just work with it. And he sees all the feelings. He's like, get to poke those feelings, and they're going to poke those feelings, and they're going to poke there. And, it's almost predictable. And we all think we're going to go to heaven and enjoy it together. No, as long as I'm at the other side of town, as long as I don't have to see you every day, that's not going to work.
No.
That's not going to work at all. But if we could take these principles and think about how would I want me to respond if I was God? How would I want me to respond if I was daddy or mommy? and what would honor them. Now you're truly honoring your authority. And you're applying biblical principles the way they intended to be applied, not watered down garbage. And so what Saul did here was very admirable, and it showed a character that God looked at. God had been watching this character, and he wanted that to be the king. And he said to Saul, when thou wast little in thine own sight, I made you head of the tribes of Israel. And to be able to have this maturity, you have to become little in your own sight. Because in your own sight, like me, when I was little in my own sight, I is my feelings, my appetites, my emotions, how much this stresses me out, how much loss I'm taking right now. When that becomes little in light of where you're going and the principles that you're guided by, now you and all your package of current feelings, taste, temperature, whatever it is, that's little compared to your principles of operation. They don't dictate what you do anymore. Your principles that you've set for yourself are dictating that, and you're little in your own sight. And God saw that in Saul, and I think what Saul did here was very commendable, and that principle could be taken and applied so many places. And Saul wasn't doing anything bad, or he was being good, but there was a point where he just felt in his spirit that I think my father would be honored for us to return and go home now. And I bet you he was right. And it was something that God noticed. So, I mean, I would ask us right now, is that the wisdom that you want to have? But it's a waste of a question. Because I even put it on my notes to ask you that question, and I feel like it's a waste. Everybody's going to say yes. But everybody's not going to determine to make this their life calling. They're not going to. And that's why some will be taken and some will be left. But it doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be anybody. But I don't know. I haven't been around very long. Maybe it can be everybody. But y'all are going to have to prove it to me. Because it would be a rare thing indeed. I'm trying to make it look good. I'm trying to make it clear. And, you know, you say this to a whole group of people, and there may be people with certain schisms in their heart towards each other. This is an opportunity for a reset button, and everybody's going to understand when you go out of here and you start acting totally different. They're going to know exactly why, and you can say, and it's going to be convicting. Like, we could all of a sudden have this, you know, a lot of these little idiosyncrasies, these little frustrations. When everybody starts doing this, it can't be everybody and one person saying, tolerate me, hey, that's your, you know, everybody's being good, so they're giving me a lot of grace to do what I want to do. That destroys the beauty of it, okay? You're taking advantage of something that's supposed to be beautiful, okay? You might find that wisdom beyond their years finally comes around and says what needs to be said. But they're not going to do it in such a way where you feel vindicated because we both stepped out of line. It's going to be gone through proper channels. It's going to be done right. And you're still not going to like it when it comes home. So don't be that foolish. I mean, I hope not. So, yeah, I hope this is a wisdom that we all want to have. I hope that we would take an encouragement like that if we heard somebody say that. You know, it wouldn't be unlikely for a mommy or a grandma or even a kind-hearted daddy to say something like that to their child to encourage them. Let me tell you, you may or may not have earned it when that happens. All right? I'm just telling you. You may or may not have earned it. You may have earned it in one aspect of life. You need to take that bit of praise and you stick it in your shoe and you need to run faster. Okay? Don't be the yo-yo that puts garbage like that in your head and gets a big head. And then they feel like, I can't say it again, I'm disappointed, I was trying to encourage them. Don't be that person. I don't know why I got frustrated. Anyway, just don't be that person. Run faster. Because there's people around here that love you, there's people around here that care about you a lot, and they really want to give you that encouragement and watch you go. And they don't want to chew on anybody. They just want to give you encouragement and watch you go. That was good, go. That was good, go. And it's not nice when you care about people and you're trying to build everybody up and you're trying to get everybody to a pretty, high standard compared to what our world's like. Our world's a mess. I don't even look at them to get any guidance about where I'm at with God, okay? Right here. And so when you're trying to do that, you don't want to be Mr. Critical. You want to be the friend. You want this camaraderie. You don't want to lose the camaraderie. You don't want to lose the morale. And so you want to do the encouragement thing. And there's nothing worse than the devil getting somebody to put it in their silly head. He wants you to have to do the criticize thing because he knows that tears relationships apart. But you don't want to do the criticize thing. You want to do the encouragement thing. And if that doesn't get any success, then it's like, all right, devil. So let's not be that way. Just wanted to throw that in there for free. So yeah, it's making sure I don't say too many things twice here. Because I had all this in my heart and I put it on paper, and so it's coming out at random speeds. And so we have a command to children. Obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. You know, child, it's going to take a little bit of this wisdom. Little child, talking to little child, maybe a little bigger child too. It's going to take a little bit of this wisdom to appreciate the verse that says, thou shalt beat them with the rod and deliver their soul from hell. They're not going to die. You don't need to get back and get angry at mom and dad when they're doing the biblical thing the biblical way. Okay? And when you're having to obey your parents in the Lord, and when you're having to honor your parents and all this stuff, you need to understand as a child. You want to put this to practice, little child? You need to understand as a child, when you're getting boundaries set for you, you need to understand, someday I'm going to be the mommy and the daddy, and I'm going to want to set rules for my little children. Okay? Yep, Mark's listening. He's going to be a good boy. Someday you're going to be a daddy, Mark, probably, and you're going to have little children, and Jonathan and Joshua and all these little folks, Timothy, you're going to have little children, and someday you're going to have to protect them and keep them safe. You're going to have to say, don't go by the pond. Don't do this. Don't be mean to your brother and your sister. Okay? Someday you're going to be in that position, but right now you're the little child. You understand? And so you need, as a little child, you want to put to practice what we're talking about tonight? As a little child, you need to look at mommy and daddy's rules, and you need to say, someday, if I was a daddy, I would want my little boy to stay away from the pond and be safe. I would want my little boy to share his toys. If I was the daddy, I would want my little children to be nice to each other. That's what you can do. And if you start acting like that, and you start being nice to your little sister, and the little sister's being nice to her brothers, because someday when she's a mommy, she's going to want her little children to be nice to each other. She's going to want her little girl to not be running around pinching and poking and trying to get as much of a rise as she can. Someday you're going to be not the little mommy. Someday you're going to be the mommy and daddy, and you're going to want your little children to act a certain way. So when you're little, if you act like you would think that you would want your little children to act, your parents are going to look at that and go, wow, they're not acting just like little bratty children. They're acting like they got wisdom beyond their years. They're acting like they're making a happy mommy and daddy. I feel very honored. Now, that's going to please the Lord, and it's going to please your parents. It's going to make the most peaceful, happy home. You guys think I got anywhere? Was that a wasted 5 minutes? You know, does God ever feel that way when he's talking to teenagers and adults? But he says it anyway, so there you got it. We need to make God feel like he's getting somewhere when he's talking to us. I'll just throw that in there. I don't want God to feel like it was as productive a time as I just spent doing what I did. I want him to know that when he gives the wisdom, it's just, I'm a wisdom sponge. That would be a good thing for God to say about you, wouldn't it? Wow. Buy the truth and sell it not, also wisdom and instruction and righteousness or something like that. Somebody help me. Something like that. Might be in here somewhere, I don't know. I don't remember. But if God sees that type of person where you're a wisdom sponge, he'll get it to you. And that's a good start on it right there. In Proverbs 23:12, it says, apply thine heart unto instruction, and thine ears to the words of knowledge. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. And we already talked about that. And wisdom beyond your years will help you to appreciate your parents' discipline.
Right.
Okay? Because you're going to understand that, you know what? I want to go to heaven. I do want to go to heaven. I don't want a parent that lets me go to hell. I need them to teach me. I don't know everything I need to know, and I need taught that it's this way or the highway. Okay? I need that. And when you have a little wisdom past your years and past your tears, then you can appreciate your parent. You're not going to get up and be angry at them. And that goes for all the way, every level of authority, all the way up. You're going to appreciate the boundaries that are set for your own protection. Because you've got wisdom that go, yeah, I want those same boundaries held in my family. I want those same boundaries to be continued when my children are young people. I want examples that are safe and sound. Not ones that are like, you have to be really hold together to walk that close to the cliff. I want examples that are safe and sound for everybody in the church to succeed. I want everybody to make it and have a glory story. I don't want any failures. And I want my children to have, I want principles that are easy to preserve, that maintain good, productive holiness and fellowship. And I just want this to where when my children grow up, they're still there and my children have all these good rules. So I'm the young person right now. Put them to practice and appreciate them. Tell them thank you. Help them. Maybe, if you got enough wisdom beyond your years, you could even give your parents ideas of, I kind of think that you're in a perfect spot to do it. To try to put restrictions or rules on anybody when you're not there is really hard. But when you're there, you can be thinking about how I would want, I'm part of the youth group or I'm part of this group or whatever. And you could be like, I've got an idea. You're going to shock your parent if you ever do this. You might have them sit down. But I was just thinking that, based on what I see, maybe, if it was my child was there like I'm there, I'd maybe think that maybe some of these restrictions or maybe some of this, up to you. You're not the authority, you're a young person. But you give them an idea, make them feel very comfortable to go ahead. They might be thinking, I'm concerned about that. I'd like to rein that in, but I don't know about the friction. I gotta weigh the pros and cons here of the relationship friction. Devil's going to take advantage of it. Do I really want to put my foot down there? And if the young people were like, look, we were thinking about it, and we feel like, for future generations, this would be a safer way to do this, and it would still meet the ends, and it would still be fun and good, but I feel like it'd be really safe. And if the young people could come up with that on their own and present it, it would at least make the authorities feel very comfortable to interject in your life and say, yay or nay, fine, or say, I think that's okay, but we were thinking about maybe this. Okay, you made a very welcoming opportunity for your authorities to give guidance because you understand that they have wisdom and they can give you valuable insight. And you're actually helping create something, and you're thinking about how my children in this situation, and I think this would be great, and they're not here, maybe I could give it don't go up there and start pushing your weight around and, stay in your place. But if you act that way towards your authority, if that's kind of the attitude that this whole congregation, these are the vibes that we get from every age bracket, and the age brackets that you would never expect it from, it's going to be like, what a group. It's going to be amazing. There's going to be no friction. When everybody's just trying to maintain holiness and godliness and follow the rules, appreciate the rules, and you're walking through life thinking about the guy behind me, not about what I want to do right now. What kind of example do I want to set in my business? What kind of example do I want to set in the vehicle I drive? What kind of example would I want my son to drive? That's the kind I'm going to buy. What would I want? What kind of business dealing would I want my son to do right now? That's the kind I'm going to do. What kind of, keep going with it. What kind of would I want my son to do, and that's what I'm going to do. Just put yourself out there a little bit, and it helps clear up a lot of the fog. It's like, tell me what's wrong with it. I can't figure out anything. It's because your feelings are all around it, and it's very gray. It's very hard. But if we can learn to take this principle and just be like, hey, and we still may not all come up with the same conclusion, but it's going to help. The trajectory of the church is going to be very good, and we're going to be moving, growing up in Him and all things. Did it say something like that somewhere in the Bible? Do you see churches doing that? I see them grow down into him in all things, or in most things. I've seen that, and we've watched that over the centuries. This is the path to growing up into him in all things. And you're still going to have differences of necessity and opinion and one, but within the bounds of what the church standards are, what we deem to be safe and wise, and strive for perfection, and encourage communication and openness with each other. And it doesn't mean that every time somebody comes and says something that you gotta buckle and bow. But if you both have the same spirit, you're going to be able to talk about it and show appreciation and love for the fact that I know how hard it is for a young person to come and talk to another young person when you care about them. And I appreciate the fact that you came and overcame that concern and came and talked to me. I want to be easy to talk to, and I appreciate that. Well, that's going to really help even if the person came to you in a very saucy manner, you could give them that type of benefit of the doubt, and it's gonna help mold that relationship together. It's either gonna mold together, or it's gonna mold and rot. But it's gonna help a lot, and it's gonna show that you care about the camaraderie of the whole thing. You care about perfection. You care about good examples. You care about all that stuff, and you appreciate the thought, and you're gonna keep it in mind. As you go forward, you're gonna keep that in mind. You're gonna pray about it. You listen to them. You heard their concern. Don't just be like, oh, you're picking everything apart. You're just jealous. That doesn't show that we're all in the same team and in the same spirit. That automatically creates friction. And if you have immaturity and it creates that, then you got schisms in the body, and the devil is going to take advantage of us. He's going to get an advantage of us. There's going to be little roots of bitterness around. And, there probably is. There probably isn't about every group, okay? But this is our group. It doesn't have to be like every group, okay? This is our group. And we can target this, and if we can look at this and diagnose it properly, and every once in a while, somebody's going to do the stupid thing and do it immaturely. Even if they do it in spiritual zeal, if they're like me, they're going to do it immaturely. Probably a bunch before they figure it out, okay? So don't, if they're doing something zealously and you feel like they hit you kind of rudely, but you're also zealous for what's right and you can respond without carnality, that will speak to that person's potentially good zeal, potentially no good zeal. It'll speak to it, but it won't create a spark and turn into a fire and turn into a problem. Usually if you respond with wisdom, I'll consider that. I'll take that to my authority and ask them if that's one of their preferences, and I appreciate your thoughts. I think you got a good desire. Give them the benefit of the doubt, and try to do anything you can to pull that relationship together, because you might have just sensed friction. You might have just sensed something that the devil's been working in this person to create a friction here. I don't want that. We're a good team. I don't want to see the team fall apart. I want to see everybody win. These are going to be just really a lot to do. Has to do with everything. But this topic to me is huge, and it has to do with, it's a very practical teaching tonight. It's very practical, and you're going to be able to take your tools tonight and put them to work tomorrow. Like, you're not going to have to wait around for a theological debate somewhere and then remember, what did righteousness Deikeo, what was it? You're not going to have to wait to put this one to practice. You can put this one, you might be able to have a chance tonight. So that's what's exciting about this. And I'm going to keep reading in Proverbs 23. My son, if thine heart be wise, mine heart shall rejoice, even mine. Have you ever thought about doing unto your father and mother as you would have your children do unto you? My son, if thine heart be wise. That's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about being wise, son, with the golden rule in mind. Mine heart shall rejoice, even mine. Yea, my reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things. Did you ever care enough about your parents, your any authority? Or is it always like, they're like almost the bad guy? It's like, I gotta try to sit here thinking of a way where I can come at them nice. Maybe I can make them a cookie. Maybe, I don't know I gotta get them to do what I want them to do. And I know I'm not gonna hit it head on, but What could I do? Maybe if we wait till the right day or in the right mood. You are not giving a rip about making your authority rejoice in joy when your heart speaks, your lips speak right things, and you're wise. You're not giving a rip about seeking out your authority's preferences and wanting to have a relationship with them. If your heart's in that other mode, you are so selfish, and you have so no wisdom beyond your years, and you will probably find that it damns you eternally because you will seek a relationship with God on the same basis.
Right.
And it's going to have very damning effects. So if that is anything a part of your mode of operation, and you don't sit there and care about the feelings of your parents and want to see them rejoice in you because if you did something good, and you're caring about applying their preferences and wanting them to just have a good relationship by being in your place because you want to be the child that you would want to have, and you want your children to love you. You want them to respect your preferences. You love your children, you don't want to have friction, and so you might give up on some of your preferences because they're immature and you're hoping they'll grow up someday. You want to be that young person for your parent. Come on. You want to have that kind of young person? Look, if you're a young person, you've got an opportunity right now to set an example and to have wisdom beyond your years.
Right.
Let's see. Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all the day long. For surely there is an end, and thine expectation shall not be cut off. Hear thou, my son, and be wise, and guide thine heart in the way. Be not among winebibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother. Despise not thy mother's correction when she is old. Wham! I wonder if I just hit a few people in the face. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother. And I'm sure that's your mother's correction, your mother's opinion, when she is old. Why would you do this? Because you still don't have wisdom within your ears, between your ears. You're not applying the golden rule, considering that you will be there someday. You will be the old mother that raised this child. You might have something that you'd like to tell them. Give them some respect and honor. You don't necessarily have to agree, or depending on where you're at in life, you might be the man of your house. But that mother deserves honor and respect and a good consideration of what she said. There it is. Buy the truth. Oh, I missed it. And sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. I said righteousness. That's not bad, but I was trying to get that last word. Buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. There's only one reason you would do that. You'd be looking for instruction. You'd be teach me mode. Easy to talk to. Yeah, tell me. What did I do? The way other people perceive you is going to be a big deal to you because your testimony, because you're trying to be God's child that he's very pleased with, that he's willing to show everybody. And you don't want to just be trampling on other people's feelings. You want to be somebody that he can trust, that will set your own feelings aside to be a good testimony for him, so that people would talk to you so you could guide them to him. And so you're going to be buying the truth and not selling it for some fun, not selling it for some money, not selling it for anything. And you're going to be seeking out wisdom and instruction. And what we're doing tonight is we're giving you a dose of we're taking a good look at what this wisdom looks like. And so if you're the type of person that's seeking this wisdom, and maybe you hadn't thought of these principles exactly before, this is going to be a turning point. It's going to change your life. If you're a wisdom sponge and you hadn't thought of this like this, this is giving you tools to use and things that you can think of. And if you're a wisdom sponge, it's just going to affect you in a very positive way. If you're used to letting stuff roll off like water off a duck's back, I'm sorry. But I'm hoping that that's not the kind of crowd I'm talking to. I really believe that even though I know there's diversity in preferences out there, we're all here, and I think that at different levels of maturity, we want to do things right. We want to be a good testimony. And I think that's our goal. I think we want to be a wisdom sponge. And And I want to be one too. And I'm sure that things don't, I'm sure wisdom bounces off of me sometimes like a ping pong ball because I don't recognize it, okay? So I'm not saying I've got this down. I'm just talking about principles that can really enhance our relationships, our church body, our ability to help one another grow. One of the works of the church to get together and speak to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, sing back melody in your hearts, and have, teaching and admonishing one another, growing up in Him in all things. This is going to create an atmosphere where it's like greenhouse for spiritual growth, where people's feelings aren't getting hurt all the time. It's about the goal. There's one cause here, not how many people are here. There's not 60 causes here. There's one cause, and we're all fighting for that cause. And unless that cause is being damaged, we're all happy and we're rooting for one another. That's what we want to see. Anytime you add another cause, there will be friction. Right. There will be. So if we could all shoot for that one cause, and tonight just abandon our cause that may have been not the cause of defending the pure faith that was once delivered to the saints, that's our chief goal. Guys, we've got an amazing clearness in the Bible, and I know that a lot of you probably don't understand. We understand it at different levels. I think that a lot of us can understand a lot of what's said is right, but the more you dig in and understand the purity of our doctrine and all the false doctrines, and you know exactly where those plugs don't plug in, you can say, that engine ain't going to work. I don't care how if a million or a billion people believe in it, that thing just ain't going to run. Because I know the mechanic book. I know the manual. The more you get to know this thing and you understand the beauty of doctrine that we have here that makes God consistent from Genesis to Revelation, and the trustworthy, non-emotional but principled and just God He is, the doctrinal package here is so worth fighting for. It's worth laying down personal preferences and little things to stay focused on the cause. And maintain purity in our holiness and our lifestyle, and to be a testimony so that this cause can go forward. That's a big deal. And the more I understand this big deal, the more it's easy for me to not think that my personal preferences are the big deal. Even though some things that I do are based on preference. I feel like this is a good, what I feel like would be a very, maybe a better way to do it, but it's within the realm of personal preference and liberty, so we forbear one another. There's other things that you do that you have a very strong conviction about that are principled, and those types of things should be things that we agree on as a church body. And we shouldn't be dividing over the things that are little personal perfections and things that we want to do in our own life. That's making another cause that's bigger. If it's a big deal to become a church issue, then we need to talk about it as church brethren and deal with it that way. Not between, young people rivalry or just, friction in families and our clique against your clique and those kinds of things. We need to double check the real cause of what we're defending, and then try to defend it in a very pure, holy way where the devil has no occasion against us, no foothold in the door.
Amen.
And be shooting for it being the most godly example, like that you would expect out of Daniel, that you would expect Jesus to act like. And when everybody's doing that, you got this wisdom, and the church is going to function. And like anybody can, there can be anybody that takes this forbearance and uses it for their own ends, and that's going to be their own shame. But what we're talking about is if you have people that have this wisdom and they understand the cause, a lot of this other friction isn't going to get in the way. You're going to be working through that in a way that brings us together, not apart. On in Proverbs 23, the father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice. My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. Do you think there's going to be a day when you want your son to do that for you? You want to have a little wisdom beyond your years? And go ahead and be that son and that daughter? I've got a question for us to ask. And you can only answer it to the level of maturity that you have. And we need to realize that. But we need to ask ourselves, if I were my parent, Would I feel honored in everything that I know that I do and say, or would I have some concerns? And that could be a good, if we're honest with ourselves, that can be a good start. Your parent may not tell you all their concerns. They may be praying to you. You have a mother or a daddy that's praying for you and is trying to work on your heart, work in a relationship, concerned about things he sees, but doesn't really want the friction, doesn't know that it's worth the friction. If you'd like to have some children like that, go ahead and be that way. But if you'd like to have a son that gives you their heart and lets thine eyes observe my ways, so that you can have a father that of the righteous that greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. If that's the kind of family you want to have when you're the father, let's go ahead and be that for our parents. A wise son heareth his father's instruction, but a scorner heareth not rebuke. Reprove it not a scorner, lest he hate thee. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love thee. Yikes, you got a little wisdom beyond your years? What do you do when somebody rebukes you for behavior that's not recommendable or that's wrong? Do you, even if they were a little mistaken, if they were trying to do what was right and they rebuked you, and you felt like, are you going to show appreciation for the fact that they cared? Show respect. Show that by your attitude back, you'll either show that they have a legit reason to be concerned about you, or that, he seems to understand what I'm concerned about, and I can see by his response that I probably misread the situation. I think it's okay. And you can hug and go on each other's way and love each other, respect each other, and let each other feel comfortable to talk about situations like that, because we want to grow and we have one cause, just one cause. And that can be the way some of those things are going to happen. There's going to be misunderstandings, and somebody's going to be like, well, I need to go talk to him because that's what I'm supposed to do. And they may come, and maybe they haven't done all their due diligence and got the facts yet. It's going to happen. We're people. But then there's maturity. It's met with maturity. And so it gets ironed out smoothly. Very quickly, smoothly. No problem. If immaturity meets immaturity, then you got problems. And the more of us that try to be mature and have this wisdom, we're not going to be good fodder for the fire for the devil. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be yet wiser. That's actually why I'm up here tonight. And I think that most of us would consider ourselves at some level trying to be a wise person. And I think a lot of us have a lot of, and maybe all of us are wiser than a lot of people in our age bracket because of the teaching that we have. And my hope tonight is that we give instruction to a wise man, and he's going to be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase learning. If I thought I was talking to scorners or fools tonight, I'd probably be preaching a different sermon. But sometimes we got to deal with those issues, just in case. Now, nurturing this wisdom, as we said, is essential for having a proper relationship with God. Because as you exercise it, you're going to begin applying the same principles in your relationship with God. And that brings us to the level of adults, and not so much just the children and young people. Adults that have children, we have a good understanding of what this looks like. Because, as young people, we would like it if they would imagine being an adult having a child and be able to come up with some decent wisdom, right? We'd like that. And then be a good child for us, right? That'd be wonderful. The good thing about adults with God is if you have children, you can surely, doesn't take as much imagination to figure out what you would like to see in your child, what would honor you, the challenges you seem to deal with in dealing with discipline and keeping their heart in the relationship, and those challenges that you deal with as a parent to a child. And you could do a direct extrapolation on that and become the best child God ever had. You understand that, right?
Right.
If anybody could start today and walk with as much wisdom beyond their years as is available to them based on the knowledge they have. They take the knowledge and they apply all the principles of wisdom into eternity, with eternity in view. Parent, business owner, church leader, every other authority that you might be under at the time, all the way to my Heavenly Father. And you walk with wisdom, with all the knowledge you have. Then as you gain knowledge, you might have corrected a step a little bit because you got more knowledge now. Okay? But the principles of wisdom can be applied right now. with the knowledge you have. And if we determine to do that and walk very carefully, not as fools, but as wise, and redeem the time had one cause, and that was what we're talking about tonight. God didn't have very many children in the Bible that did that. There's not very many. And there's not very many in history that did that. And you could become a very peculiar and special person to God and this church. Think of that. Now we're not talking about one person. We're talking about a group of people that could do that. And where they could encourage one another and talk about these things and remember these things and talk about the details and, really get it down. And everybody would love the principle. And as a group, I can't make decisions for you, but I can try to encourage us that as a group, we could become a very special group before God's eyes. Right. And there haven't been very many groups. God's had some faithful men in the past. Find the faithful group in the past. If we could bring this thing to 80%, 90%, 100% success on this type of behavior, it's simple. This isn't across the sea. This isn't who's going to bring it to us. This is get up from the chair and start doing it. One step, next step. Am I acting the way I would want to have? Golden rule for 20 years down the road, reverse roles. Is this what I would want my son to do? Is this the way I would want my son to, buy a truck, a car, build a house, a business, act in church, act to that young person that just insulted me. 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, into eternity, start applying those principles the minute we get up. And if everybody would do that, we could potentially become a one-of-a-kind church in history, because it's not common, okay? And you're not any less capable than anybody, okay? You live in the new covenant, you've got all the benefits and blessings, if not some extra help, than anybody ever had, okay? You got it. You've got the potential of the most faithful man anywhere since the world started. And you got to understand that, or you're going to let yourself, well, some people are that way and some people aren't. You're a loser. You don't have a cause. You have the potential to be everything we're talking about tonight, and if everybody would do it, the friction would cease, and the love would grow, and the perfecting of the saints would all happen at the same time. Right. Couldn't get more beautiful than that. And wouldn't it be an honor to get to heaven and God be like, never had a group like Living Faith Christian Fellowship. There was quite the living faith there. And they were able to work together in such a way and encourage one another in such a way to not just pat each other on the back and keep a group together. That's sensitive. That's hard to do, to keep a group together. But they were actually able to do it in such a way that it brought about an incredible product in the whole. Right. Does it mean anything to you to be special to God? I mean, you got to start there. Yeah. Does it mean anything to you? You can start in your own life, but then I'm looking at it as this is our little group. This is my group. This is my team. Okay, guys? That's what we're talking about. And I don't know what else I could say to relay the feeling. I want this to be special to God. I think it is, and I want it to be very special. I don't want to be ordinary in my life and in the church that I'm a part of. But that takes everybody, and that's where the helpless feeling comes down. You got the weak hands, the feeble knees that you can't really pick up when you start thinking about, I can't control anything that you guys do, but we all are a team, and I want my team to be the best. Amen. Amen. But the best in love, and the best in purity, and the best in loving this cause, and being God's best. To provoke one another to love and good works. I'm just going to pass over a lot of this because we've stated a lot of this. And so the church members, to church leaders, adults in our life, everybody in their relationship with God, being the son. You got a child. Just imagine the perfect child. Look at your little boy and imagine the perfect child. Look at your teenager and imagine the perfect child that you could just be totally blown away with how they care about your preferences, how they listen to your instructions, how they take your rebuke on everything, and go, come on, adult, go, Lord, I want to be that for you as best I can. I'm limited in knowledge, And you're going to understand that. You're going to give me more knowledge. But I want to be that way in my relationship with you. When you have that connection, you've all of a sudden looked out to have your desiring wisdom to the end. And with the end in sight. And that's going to line all the dots up in your relationship all the way back.
Right.
So we worked our way out. And it'll automatically line up on the way back. You can't have your little relationship with God and be a good child for God all by yourself and not have things right with your brother. Jesus made that so clear. You're a liar. Okay? You can't do that. It's not in place. That's not what you would be honored to have if you were the father and it was your son and he just didn't want to be with any of the other children and he just wanted to have a relationship with by himself. That doesn't make a family work. That's not how family works.
Right.
You wouldn't imagine that being a perfect child. You'd want the child that could interact and promote your preferences and your will and defend your integrity and defend your reasons for discipline and your reasons for rules and defend it like you think he had the wisdom of the father when he's doing this and he's the 12-year-old. Okay? And before God, as adults, we can be that to God.
Right.
Get that golden rule figured out in light of the law and the prophets' parameters, and take this principle of wisdom, mix the two together, and you're going to have a character, and you're going to have a church that is incredible, and it's going to be hard for the devil to get any foothold, any root of bitterness. It's going to be hard to happen. Be that church member that you would want to have. Give the benefit of the doubt that you would want to have. Understand that you don't know everything either. And be the person that you would want to have. Direct to the authority like you would want to have. Don't be the child that takes all the credibility they can away from the parent. And I think there's more wise ways to do that. You shut your mouth. There may be with fallible humans. But you shouldn't allow yourself to do and say certain things that would dishonor. You should be looking for the integrity and honor. You should be jealous of the honor of your father and your mother. You should be jealous of that. And you should be jealous of the integrity and the honor and the respect of your church leaders as they try and do their best as a human being. And you should try to be that. Someday you may have a place of authority. And you may be in a place of authority. And you want to look forward to reaping what you sowed. And also, it's not just about that. It's about this relationship with God. It's about being that child in the household that you'd want to have, that God wants to have in his household. If you have carnal ambitions and carnal desires, you may not be able to look at this a proper way and go, that's the child I'd want to have. You may not be able to do that properly. But if you have this cause that we're talking about as your chief cause, and you have the law and the prophets, and you love that parameter, you're in the right mind frame to start making these extrapolations. You can think of the example of Jonathan and David. When Jonathan would have been heir to the throne, he could see what happened with his father. And he understood the heart of God of why it was appropriate for the cause of righteousness to discontinue this dynasty. And he was willing to give it to David because he could understand from God's heart, this honors God. It's not about me. It's about the big cause in Israel. And David would be good for Israel. And even though could be good for Israel, I can see why God can't endorse what just happened. And for me to continue, would have to endorse that. And so this is appropriate. And I'm happy to serve here because it had nothing to do with Jonathan as the cause. And he was older than David. And he would have been heir to the throne, and he was ready to hand off his stuff and say, I'll be second to you. I'm going to be right there and help you. That's the kind of heart I'm talking about. Somebody who's totally it's not about self-interest. He was totally abasing himself in all his dreams of the future because of his father's mistakes. But he was so in tune to being the son that God would want to have and interested in what God was interested in, that even though it was somebody else's mistake, it was his father's mistake. How many of you would love to have some of those mistakes you could use it against your father to get what you wanted? Well, that didn't sound good. Wouldn't admit that. But his father had messed up so bad that he was losing his future. He was losing it. Major loss. Huge loss. Something that we wouldn't even understand. The amount of loss this is. The disgrace. And he was humble and was like, I'll be second to you. I'm not going to rival with you. I'm not going to fight for it. Father, don't fight for it. I know what God wants to do, and I want to be God's favorite. I don't care if what this world has. I want to be God's favorite.
Amen.
And he was an incredible example in that you're not going to get that kind of character. You're not just going to be walking along through life and step into it. Okay, it's going to be a life of strategic stepping and walking, and you're going to have to be very, very underpowered to get that. We need to ask ourselves, when I leave this season, whatever season you're in, I don't know whatever age bracket you're in, there's a lot of age brackets out there. Will my example pull others toward perfecting their relationship with Christ in that, if they follow my example, or will it pull them away, farther away? Is my example safe for every person to follow in my season, where I'm at? Right now, I'm a young married man with a few children. I'm in a certain season of life. I'll move into other seasons of life. We all have a spot of life that we're in, and that's part of this walking. Is this something that I recommend as a safe protocol for everybody to follow? Is this safe, or is this very risky territory? And then we need to, if it's risky, we need to understand why it's risky. If it's risky spiritually, not just physically, then it needs to be very much considered getting it discarded. And sometimes you got to do with things that are risky to reach out in ministry. You've got to take on some risks. And so, those things have to be considered as necessary potential casualties, because there's something risky about not being a missionary for the Lord. Something a little risky about that. You're not going to be no favorite of his. When he sees you, not really giving yourself to his work, but there's some risk there. But then there's other examples that you could set in life that aren't necessary. It's really about self-promotion. It's about, making yourself look better than everybody else and trying to get, it's really about self-advancement. And these things that I'm planting, these seeds, these things that I'm kind of encouraging by some of my decisions, they're not necessarily safe examples for people to start competing in, because this could lead places we don't want to lead. And that's not something I want to promote. So I'm going to walk in a way that I feel like is keeping the first cause, where it's not starting to look like loving God and loving something else. I'm going to try to make it very clear my first cause is this, and I won't trade my testimony. I won't trade an example. I want everybody to get to this. And so we're gonna walk through life wondering if I'm living in the season of life that I'm in a way, if I'm parenting in a way that would be good to recommend to everybody, if I'm purchasing in a way that would be good to recommend to everybody, and not, if you're doing it trying to look better than everybody else in a little way in your heart, then you're starting a competition thing in a direction that's not good to continue, because it really doesn't matter. Everybody wants to, in their carnal nature, wants to look the best. Everybody wants to, look like they can pull it together. They got it together. They can support their family, and you're doing fine. And it doesn't need to look like, but I'm doing better than you. We don't need to be striving in a competition in that way. It needs to just be like living on a certain plane of living where it's doable, and then there's gonna be little variations in that, and that's okay, because it doesn't matter. That's not the first cause. It doesn't really matter. But there are areas of life that we can move into where it's extravagance and examples that promote in a direction that we wouldn't want to go, that wouldn't be safe to go. And as a young person that wants to have this first cause and a safe environment for his children, and a safe environment, I'm the children right now, I'm the young person right now, and I want my son to still have, I don't want 20 years of this example to be, 20% down the wrong path by the time my son gets here. I don't want that. I want him to have this example. So we're going to try to preserve that, because we're looking 20 years down the road. But that's good, and it's hard when you're in the young stages of life. There's obviously, the younger you are, the less maturity you have. But honestly, if you endeavor to do this, you're going to put on so much maturity tonight that it's going to be hard to handle, because you've got a lot of knowledge. Every one of us has a lot of knowledge. And you could really, like your chart of a maturity could be going like this, and the trajectory could be at 60 years old, you'd be here. And tonight you can make a real pop in the right direction on that chart just by taking all the knowledge you know and taking this principle of golden rule and wisdom and applying it with the knowledge you know. And that is maturity, if anything is. Okay? And you could up your maturity to the maturity of 40, 50 years old, or close to that, by looking that far into the future in wisdom the best you can as you take steps and make choices. I got one more little passage here that we're going to read, and then I'm going to cut this short. Be ye therefore followers of God, Ephesians 5, as dear children. Be ye therefore followers of God as dear children to God. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Is that make you thrill? Is that what you want to be more than anything? Is you want to be God's dear child? Us, our group, to be God's dear children. It's a big deal that you don't just want to be God's dear child, but you want us to be God's dear children. Okay? It's a big deal. If I want to just go be holy by myself, that's one thing. But if I'm willing to come in and put the blood, sweat, and tears into trying to make a godly environment, a godly atmosphere, a godly workplace, a godly home place, a godly youth group, I want all of us to be as dear children to God. That takes a lot more effort and determination. You take more hits and you give and you take more, but you keep trying to guide it. You're willing to be a nerd if you have to try to encourage the right direction. You're going to find yourself in some awkward positions, but you're going to be carefully and calculated working toward this end. It's very important that you want it to be as God's dear children as well. That's so important. And walk in love as Christ also hath loved us and hath given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becometh saints. Any one of those things is a huge, it's a bomb in the church, and most people can see most of them, but they just let the covetousness one kind of slip in and go around. And in one way or the other, in relationships, you're coveting that relationship from somebody else, and so you got this problem, or you're coveting the things somebody else has, or you're looking and you're starting that competition thing that leads you in a direction where I can do, whatever. And that one, honestly, is probably the biggest one that we need to put a big check on, because whether it's I wanted that friend or I wanted that person to be my friend and all that garbage that goes on, it's a bomb in the church when it comes to relationships and perfecting that. You're not going to listen to a spiritual word that person has to say. You will shut them out of your life because of this problem, okay? So that's a bomb, and I want to bring that one up because it's one that gets unchecked occasionally, or most of the time. So you need to have a bomb detector on that one. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not appropriate, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Think about that as dear children, but rather giving of thanks. Forget all the foolishness, okay? And yeah, as adults, probably God looks down and sees a lot of childish foolishness. And let's try to not be that foolish teenager that God's like, but find dear children that are forgetting all these things, but rather giving of thanks, walking in love, and so offering to God a sacrifice for a sweet-smelling savor. There's nothing quite like when you're doing so much for your children that they don't even understand. They don't have a clue. But when they are appreciative for the things that they do understand, that means a lot. But when they always just want more, and they're not happy, and they're not going to serve you very good unless you give them some more, if you're a manipulated parent, that might drive you crazy. If you're a mature parent, it's going to grieve your heart, but they're not going to get any more, okay? And God's a good parent. Right. And so if you got a brain and you know how good parents operate, it's almost like sounding selfish. You probably ought to think about giving of thanks. I actually saw a sign the other day. I was going down to Paris, Missouri a few days ago. And I just, the signs where you have a few words, and it said, if you only had today what you gave thanks for yesterday, how much would you have? And I went, whoa! And I started giving a lot of thanks. Because that's something to think about. That's a big deal. We like more, and we like more, and we like more. We're like the little children. You give them some more, and they want more, and they want more, and then when you're done, they're like, okay. They're doing good not to throw a fit. Instead of endearment. God gives us a lot of things. He wants to have an endearing relationship, and we're a bunch of ingrates, generally. That's what's normal. That's what's wisdom within normalcy. And if we can be the people who look for the positive things, and we have a beautiful day, and it's a beautiful time of year, and you can choose what to look at, and you're living in a palace, Because there's a lot of comfort. There's a lot of people who didn't have that nice facility for them when they got to this age. People get to this age. We're all going to get to this age. It happens, but look what I get to have when I'm at this age versus what other people have had to have when they're at this age. This is a blessing. And you'll be that person that looks for things to be grateful for in the midst of the storm rather than the person who looks for things to complain about in the midst of the blessing. And there's all kinds in the world and everything in between. So if you want to be a dear child to God, think about that when it comes to the gratitude. For this you know that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man who is an idolater hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no man deceive you with vain words, for because of these things cometh the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience. Be not ye therefore partakers with them. For you were sometimes darkness, but now are ye light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth, proving what is acceptable unto the Lord. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. Be that child that's willing to stand up for God when it's awkward and say what needs to be done. Whether you're in the world, you need to see, at certain levels, you need to be willing to say something and take whatever comes from that. And usually if you do it right and it's well ordered, you'll get respect for it. I was in an awkward position a while back, and there was a really nice guy we were working with, and very friendly, been very good to get along with, but I could tell he'd grown up and been very used to a mouth that would just spew things that just aren't appropriate. And boy, it was hard for me because it was a big business opportunity, and I wanted to, but I didn't like how much was coming out. And I didn't just say something right there in front of my crew and everybody, because that would be dishonoring. And I waited until they got back up on the roof, and while I stayed with him a little while and we talked. And then I just told him that, as Christians, we feel like, we try to keep a clean environment, and we want to be pleasing to the Lord in our speech. And I tried to do it in a way. I said I didn't want to do it in front of everybody and disrespect you, but I just thought maybe, the boys will respect you more if we don't have that. He was so appreciative and said he's going to tell his whole crew. It was the City of Marceline Management, and I was, just my first job I ever done for the City of Marceline. We just got hooked up where we were going to do a lot of, we'll be there to do a lot of their maintenance work and whatever on their buildings. And he said he would let his whole city crew know that when we're around, that they need to knock it off and find a different word. And it was challenging, but I knew that I did the right thing. And when I was done, he appreciated and respected us as a crew and trusted us more than he did before. Because so you need to be willing to say something, but it needs to take some thought. It doesn't need to be like, watch your mouth. There may be a time when that's necessary. I'm not saying that's always wrong. I've done some of that. But if we can think about it and come at it if we love the person, not prejudge their response, not prejudge their motive for even saying it. Pity the person and give them a chance to show that we care and respect them. Now we've done both. And that's good. So rather reprove them. Be a child of God. Understand how you would want your child to act in a home if you were the parent and they were in this situation. You wouldn't want them to just be bleh, but you'd love it if you'd found out that they waited and calculated and I don't have to do anything. You guys worked that all out in a peaceful way and they all love each other. Great. And so when God looks at us as adults, he wants to see some of that understanding that we have played out in our missionary efforts to the world. And so we can actually have a positive impact and not shame his name when we're claiming his name. So that's important. Oh yeah, there was a verse I'm trying to get to. I might just go to it. For it is a shame, it says, you speak of those things that are done of them in secret, but all things that are reproved are made manifest by the light, for whatsoever doth make manifest is light. Wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want us to be. That's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is for his people. Be as dear children, not just your little self, but focus on making the whole dear children. A place that Christ would want to come and dwell and be amongst us, and where he feels the best place in the world. What if you found out someday that of all the churches in the world, the Living Faith Christian Fellowship was the one where Christ felt most welcome to come in and make application of principle as the preaching took place, and it's the one he felt most welcomed at of all the churches in the world. He knows where he feels welcomed and where he doesn't feel welcomed, okay? And it's possible that we could make that environment for him.
Right.
But it's not going to happen on accident. We're not going to be able to run like normal people run. We're going to have to be wisdom way beyond our normal years and thinking about being that dear child for God. So let's tune into God, be that dream child for God, and keep God's big picture, your big picture, all the time. God bless you.
Let's stand together. Next Wednesday night, we'll go back, since the time is changing, we'll go back to Wednesday night.